This is actually insane. Is Keir Starmer sleepwalking Britain toward World War III? Because that's exactly what Donald Trump is hinting at. Not long ago, Trump absolutely tore into Starmer over Ukraine, accusing him of talking tough about sending troops, escalating rhetoric, and blowing straight through Trump's year-long push to drag that war toward an ending. And this didn't come out of nowhere. Starmer had been going around saying Britain was ready to play a leading role in Ukraine's long-term security, openly floating the idea of British boots on the ground as part of post-war guarantees, and framing it all like moral duty instead of a geopolitical powder keg. No red lines, no caution, just big, brave talk about standing up to Russia, whatever that might require. To Trump, that wasn't leadership, that was recklessness. He made it very clear that Starmer isn't helping peace. He's poking the fire while pretending he's holding a fire extinguisher, and that matters. Because when you start freelancing on wars involving NATO, Russia, and a nuclear balance that's already hanging by a thread, you don't just create headlines, you create consequences, allies get nervous, adversaries get bold, and suddenly Britain looks less like a stabiliser and more like a wild card. Vladimir Putin clarified that the presence of any NATO troops at the border with Ukraine will result in a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. But for some reason, Keir Starmer continually insists on doing so, which means that he is ready for a direct military conflict with Moscow. And then Trump went even harder. He called out what he sees as Starmer's rank hypocrisy. Because not long before this, Starmer had lined up with his European mates loudly backing Denmark over Greenland, talking about sovereignty, territorial integrity, borders being sacred, all that high-minded stuff. Suddenly he was Mr. International Law, lecturing the world about how you don't mess with another country's land. And Trump basically went, oh, really? On one hand, Starmer is suddenly very passionate about sovereignty, rushing to defend Greenland's borders, lecturing the world about who gets to control what land. Borders matter, apparently. But here's the problem. Those borders only seem to matter when they're someone else's. Because when it comes to Britain's own borders, different tune entirely. There, it's all activist slogans, vague moral grandstanding, and that airy, we're all citizens of the world energy. As if border control is some outdated concept only bad people believe in. So Trump's question was brutal and simple. How can you be eager to defend everyone else's borders while treating your own like an inconvenience? And behind the scenes, Starmer's team has been scrambling, full panic mode, briefings flying, aides whispering to journalists, trying to paint Trump as reckless while quietly walking back what Starmer actually said. Damage control, not leadership. Because once the accusation is out there that you're tough abroad, soft at home, and careless with escalation, you don't just brush that off. And the fact they went straight into attack mode against the Don instead of calmly owning the moment, that tells you everything. This wasn't planned. This wasn't controlled. And it's starting to look like Starmer is losing his grip on the narrative fast. Now, here's where this stops being political theatre and starts getting genuinely dangerous. Because when Keir Starmer starts floating the idea of sending troops, he's not talking about vibes or symbolism. He's talking about boots, uniforms, coffins. Russia has been crystal clear for years now. Any NATO troops anywhere near the Ukraine battlefield is a red line. Not a suggestion, not a warning label, a red line. Cross it and you're no longer supporting Ukraine. You're in a direct confrontation with a nuclear power. And this is where Trump keeps absolutely clowning him. Trump's line is simple. You don't end wars by marching closer to them. Every time Starmer talks tough, Trump fires back with the same jab. This guy's not stopping a war, he's auditioning for one. Because from Trump's perspective, Starmer isn't de-escalating, he's posturing. Saying the big words, making the bold promises while ignoring the very real reality that Britain doesn't get to casually stumble into a global conflict and then shrug it off. What makes it worse is the timing. Trump's been hammering away for over a year, trying to force talks, pressure both sides, cool things down. And then here comes Starmer, puffing his chest, hinting at troop deployments like he's trying to impress the front row of Brussels. Trump's jab cuts deep. You don't threaten World War III while pretending you're the adult in the room. And honestly, that line sticks. Because once you say troops, you can't unsay it. Markets listen, militaries listen, Moscow listens, and suddenly Britain isn't just a supporter anymore. It's a potential trigger. Trump keeps framing it as reckless ego politics. Leaders who won't pay the price are always the quickest to raise the stakes, and that's the shadow hanging over Starmer now. Not strength, not leadership, but the growing sense that he's playing with matches in a room full of gasoline, while Trump stands there yelling, "Put it down before you burn the whole place." All right, now this is where Trump really smells blood. Because after Ukraine, Trump pivots straight to Greenland, and it's not random. Starmer had lined up with allies talking tough about sovereignty, borders, territorial integrity, the whole sacred language package. Greenland matters, borders matter, lines on maps matter. Suddenly, Starmer's very serious about defending someone else's territory from pressure. And Trump basically goes, "Oh, borders exist now?" That's the punchline. That's the hit. Trump starts hammering the contrast. You'll defend Greenland, you'll defend Ukraine, you'll defend everyone else's borders. But when it comes to Britain's own border, suddenly it's all vibes, compassion speeches and root causes. And the numbers back the criticism up. Month after month, crossings are up, hotels full, costs spiralling, local councils begging for help. And Starmer, careful words, no hard lines, no deterrence, no clear plan that actually slows anything down. Trump calls it what his supporters are already calling it online, selective sovereignty. His jab is brutal and simple. You're willing to risk war to defend borders overseas, but you won't even defend the border of the country you're supposed to be running. Starmer's team absolutely panics at this point. You can tell. Briefings start flying. Spokespeople rush out to say, this is different. International law, humanitarian obligations, all the usual script. But the damage is done. And because to normal people watching this unfold, it sounds like lawyer talk dodging a basic question. And social media? Oh, it detonates. Clips of Starmer talking about sovereignty overseas get stitched next to footage of boats landing in Britain, side by side. Millions of views. Comment sections are ruthless. Even people who don't like Trump are saying, I hate that he's saying it, but he's not wrong. That's the worst place for Starmer to be. Meanwhile, Trump keeps twisting the knife, mocking the scramble. He says Starmer's trying to be the world's moral hall monitor, while his own house is wide open. Says Britain's borders are being treated like an optional suggestion while British taxpayers are told to just deal with it. And here's the deeper problem for Starmer. This isn't just a Trump attack. It's a narrative that sticks. Once people see the contradiction, they can't unsee it. Every future speech about values or rules-based order gets filtered through one question. Whose rules and for who? That's why this Greenland comment mattered so much. It wasn't about Greenland. It was about exposing what Trump frames as Starmer's core weakness. Strong words abroad, soft hands at home. And the more Starmer tries to explain it away, the more it looks like exactly what Trump accused him of. A leader who knows how to lecture the world but can't or won't draw a line where it actually counts. And once that perception sets in, that's not just a bad week. That's the kind of thing that follows you right up to the door marked leadership crisis. And that's where this leaves Starmer, squeezed from every angle. Trump's laughing, critics are circling, and the public's starting to connect dots they can't unsee. Tough on everyone else's borders, hesitant on Britain's own. Big talk on war, careful whispers at home. If this keeps snowballing, this isn't just another controversy. It's the kind that shortens political careers. Fast.